Chapter 1. Routine Silence. The storm hadn't let up in 6 days. Wind rattled the comms deck, sleet clattered against the windows. The steel frame groaned with every gust. Kira North stood by the main observation window and the upper comms deck, arms folded, watching snow shear sideways across the floodlights outside. Wind screamed against the reinforced glass. Somewhere beneath that white abyss, the rest of the world had gone silent. The storm didn't bother her. Weather could be measured, predicted. It was people who disrupted protocol. That never changed, not even down here. Behind her, the station creaked and groaned like an old ship. Pipes ticked, steel flexed. Her reflection hovered ghost-like on the glass, pale face, dark thermal gear, tension locked in her shoulders. Echo Point Station wasn't built for comfort. It had been carved into the ice like a bunker and retrofitted year after year with just enough parts to keep it breathing. Fluorescent bulbs buzzed overhead. A dull hum filled the silence. Fans, compressors, the nervous heartbeat of a system slowly wearing thin. The air smelled faintly of ozone, copper, and thawed plastic. Somewhere down the corridor, water dripped rhythmically into a bucket.
But that was before the blackout. Now it was something else entirely.
Still no comms? She asked without turning. From the corner of the same room, cluttered with patch cables, spare batteries, and half-disassembled signal amplifiers, Nico Reyes muttered, "Dead air, same as yesterday, same as last week." She turned. Reyes was hunched over a console, black hair shoved under a knit cap, half a ration bar clenched between his teeth. Suddenly, the overhead lights blinked twice and dimmed. The monitor in front of Reyes gave a sharp pop and went dark. "Shit," he muttered, tapping the side of the console. Nothing. He crouched, yanked open a panel beneath the desk, and began fiddling with the wiring. A few sparks danced as he rewired a junction. The hum of the system stuttered, then returned. "That's the 3rd short this week. One more and we'll be soldering with spit." The screen blinked back to life. "There we go. Crisis averted. Until the next one." He didn't look up. "If this power drop keeps trending, we're having emergency stew tonight. You like your freeze-dried with a hint of diesel, right?" Kira didn't smile. She rarely did. "I'll cook," he added. "Not a threat, a promise." "System integrity?" she asked. "Stable-ish. External sensors are still lagging and the east relay is acting drunk. I'll fix it after my date with the heating grid." She crossed to the main console. A wide, scuffed terminal bolted into the far wall of the command module, scanning readouts. Battery levels, wind velocity, ambient temperature, internal oxygen balance. Everything holding, barely. He leaned back in his chair, watching her. "You ever think maybe the storm's never going to end?" She ignored that. From the far hallway, soft footsteps echoed. Dr. Lena Volkov appeared in the doorway, half-shadowed beneath a hood. "Commander," she said. "Someone accessed the message bank last night." Kira's head tilted slightly. "What time?" 0213. "Who?" The user ID was masked. Of course it was. Kira exchanged a glance with Reyes. He raised an eyebrow but didn't speak.
Volkov stepped further in. At first I thought it was a diagnostic, maybe a log glitch. I checked the sensor feeds myself, but no, the access was deliberate.
Kira nodded. "Show me." As they exited the comms deck, the hallway lights flickered with a hesitant buzz. The narrow corridor leading to the main terminal was lined with frost-glazed conduit and scuffed emergency lockers. Somewhere nearby, the muffled sound of laughter echoed briefly. Cast and Rowe probably in the rec room again. A ping-pong ball bounced once, then again, before silence reclaimed the base. In the command module, dim, low-ceilinged, and always too cold, The lights flickered once before stabilizing. Kira sat at the main terminal as Volkov pulled up the system logs. The playback interface blinked, then loaded the last known message from McMurdo. The file was partially corrupted, audio static, flickers of a face, a voice, male, urgent, strained through distortion.
Do not let anyone in. Repeat. Do not let anyone in, even if they look like us.
The screen cut to black. Kira sat still.
A sudden memory pulled at her, not of war or training, but that gut-deep instinct from a decade ago, staring at a fractured radar feed on a Norwegian transport, the moment before the crash, when she already knew something was wrong. Hours later, Ro had pulled her from the wreckage. That same instinct was stirring now.
That same chill behind the heart. Who else has seen this? Just us, Volkov said quietly. So far. She hesitated, just for a moment. Part of her wanted to call an all-hands meeting, lay everything on the table. But protocol weighed heavier. Fear made people stupid. Until she knew what this was, a prank, a test pattern, or something worse, it stayed contained.
She thought about waking Ro. Once, in a whiteout north of Nuke, he'd been the man who steadied her through the crash. Now he only carved animals and left them to freeze in the greenhouse corridor.
Outside, the wind howled like something hungry. A faint vibration passed through the floor, so subtle she almost missed it, like the bass itself had exhaled, then gone still. In the greenhouse corridor, the sound of something clattered faintly, a dropped tool maybe, then silence again. She checked the logs again. The file had been accessed at 0213. The user ID was masked. Someone in this station already knew, and still hadn't told her.
That was the part that mattered. The broadcast wasn't new. It had been buried until now. Whoever masked their ID hadn't stumbled onto it. They'd gotten looking. And then they'd chosen silence. Chapter 2. Friction. The rec room felt warmer than the rest of the station, but only just. Rows of mismatched chairs were shoved back from the ping-pong table, where Cass Moreau leaned across the net and flicked the ball toward Ro without looking. "That's game," she said, grinning. "Pay up." Dr. Conrad Rowe raised an eyebrow and pulled a protein bar from his coat pocket. "You only win when I let you." "Sure, you let me the last 4 times too, right?" He pulled a ration bar from his pocket, peeled back the crinkled wrapper with careful fingers, and passed it over. Cass collapsed into one of the chairs, breath flagging slightly. "You hear the storm last night? Thought the roof was going to peel off." "It always sounds worse in the greenhouse wing," Rose said. "The wind funnels weird over the old ductwork, makes it howl." Cass leaned across the table, flipping the ping-pong ball into her palm. "You ever finish that fox?" Rose tilted his head. "The one in the greenhouse?" "Yeah, you left it on the ledge by the CO2 pipes. Looked almost done." "It's not a fox, it's a lynx." "Huh, lynx does look grumpy." He smiled faintly. "It's patient. Big difference." "You always carve endangered species, or just the ones that judge people?" He snapped the protein bar in half and offered her the other piece. "Come by sometime. I'll loan you my encyclopedia of animals. Page 1, lynx." She took it without answering. "Are you flirting with me?" she asked finally, voice flat. Ro paused again, his brows lifting. For a long second, he just looked at her. Then, faintly, almost to himself, he smiled.
Maybe I am. She hadn't expected it, not from him, but deep down, she knew. Something in the way he looked at her lingered too long, too steady. The warmth that rose in her chest was as startling as his words. Cass masked it with a half smile, but her voice betrayed her. Careful, Ro. I might believe you.
The door opened and Kira North stepped in, followed closely by Nico Reyes. Nico's eyes flicked briefly toward her as he entered, not just checking for orders, but watching the way she carried herself. Tense, controlled, too controlled. He didn't say anything, but his glance lingered a second longer than it should have. The laughter drained from the room.
Brief update, Kiera said. I'll keep it quick.
Cass straightened up. Rose sat up, tucking the wrapper away. Nico leaned against the wall, arms crossed, trying to look casual. Kira didn't glance at him. Comms are still down, she said. Internal power stabilizing. Volkov's running a log check. Nothing critical, but anomalies. What kind of anomalies? Cass asked. Message access. Masked login. 0213 this morning. Rose brow furrowed. That's not on the rotation. No, it's not, Kira said. Nico's eyes flicked toward Cass. So, someone's poking around the logs and didn't leave a name tag. Kira nodded once. No need to panic. Not yet. We're running tracebacks. Could be system drift, glitch, but we keep it contained until we know more. Cass opened her mouth to argue, then closed it again. Her fingers drummed on the table. Ro glanced between them. What was accessed?
Kiera hesitated. Volkov hadn't suggested sharing it, so Kiera hadn't ordered it shared. But the question hung there, heavy. Before she could speak, Nico added, We caught a corrupted file. Might have been from McMurdo, might not. We'd missed it. It was buried because the playbacks glitched. Looks like it was supposed to be their last message. Kiera gave him a sharp look, but he only shrugged and tapped the console. Kiera warned. Too late. The file was already loading.
The static burst filled the room like a slap. A male voice, broken by distortion. Do not let anyone in, even if they look like us. The clip cut off. Silence followed. Cass took a slow step back. Was that real? Ro didn't answer. His eyes were fixed on the screen, unmoving. Jesus, Nico muttered. Bit heavy for a weather report. He waited for someone to laugh. No one did. The silence stretched, sharp and static-filled. Even Nico's smirk faltered. Kira exhaled through her nose. No one speaks of this outside this room. Not yet. Until we understand what we're dealing with, it doesn't leave this space. Cass looked at her, defiant. You're kidding, right? We don't know what it is. Hoax, test, signal bleed. We don't guess. Ro finally spoke. It didn't sound like a test. Kira turned. You think it's real? He looked tired. I think someone wanted it heard. Cass folded her arms. Then we should warn the others. At least Lena.
Volkov's already aware. It was her idea not to make it public, Kiera said flatly.
She left the room without waiting for agreement. Nico lingered, then followed. Cass watched him go. Then, quietly to Ro.
That's it. We just wait? Ro looked toward the wall, where the screen had gone dark again. I believe waiting might be the only safe move left. As if in answer, the overhead lights flickered. Twice, then once more, and the hum of the rec room's heater stuttered. Ro rubbed her arms. Feels colder. Ro didn't reply for us. His gaze lingered on the lights overhead, then the console where the message had played.
A low hum still vibrated beneath the floor, the station's heartbeat. Steady, but off. Subtle, but there. He looked toward the sealed bulkhead. Something's different today. Rose sat back down. Well, he said quietly, so much for routine. The corridor outside the rec room was quiet now. Most of the crew had drifted back to their stations. Kira stood alone near the backup lockers, scanning her tablet, but not really reading. The hum of the station felt louder in the silence. Nico lingered by the far end of the corridor, one hand resting lightly on a wall rail. He hadn't spoken since the meeting. No wisecracks, no smirks. You should have let me handle that, Kira said without looking up. You paused. Didn't think you would. She finally met his eyes. I didn't authorize you to play it. No, but I figured the part where it says don't let them in kind of trumped chain of command. Kira studied him. You always test boundaries. And you never flinch. It's a dance. She turned back to the tablet. I don't dance. He took a step closer. You used to. You were different during the Svalbard mission. Kira's jaw flexed. That was a different kind of cold. A beat passed. He almost smiled, not mocking this time, just remembering. Chapter 3, Containment. The technical deck was colder than it should have been. Volkov adjusted the thermal cuff on her sleeve and leaned over the diagnostics array, watching code scroll past in pale green lines. Everything here hummed quietly, not with life, but function. Machines doing what they were told until they don't. She tapped in a command to cross-check comm log timestamps. The screen blinked once, then showed the access entry, 0213. But when she forced a sync with the internal server clock, another line appeared, threading itself beneath the first like a ghost shadow, 0313. Her fingers paused on the keyboard, 1 hour apart, same node, same data packet. But it wasn't just the timestamp that bothered her. The metadata showed no user ID, no signature, no system trail. Someone or something had accessed the file and left no trace. That shouldn't be possible, not even on Echo Point's half-broken software mesh. She reran the query, same result. She frowned and initiated a full scan. The screen twitched. The cursor blinked erratically. Don't do that, she said under her breath, already knowing it wouldn't listen. The diagnostics array stuttered, then resumed. Glitch, maybe. Or maybe something was watching the system work. Footsteps behind her. She didn't turn. It's not a hardware fault. I didn't say it was, Kira replied. Volkov straightened. 2 timestamps, 1 packet. Same corruption, different access. Internal, not bounced from McMurdo. Kira stepped beside her, arms folded. Could it be echo data? Feedback loop? No, this isn't a misfire. It's mirrored, but only the file access time. The rest of the logs are clean. Kira's eyes stayed on the screen. Which timestamp is accurate? Volkov hesitated. System treats both as real. A long pause. Then Kira said, That's not possible. Volkov didn't reply. Her eyes moved across the data columns, calculating something silently. She wanted to believe it was just a software glitch. Something simple, mechanical, logical. But the silence inside the system felt aware, like something was watching them back through the code. They stood in the hum of machines. Somewhere beneath them, a low mechanical clunk echoed, the kind you felt more than heard. Volkov glanced at the floor. Integrity scans running. Kira didn't ask for permission to take the console. Show me. Volkov gestured to a nearby terminal. Numbers flickered, lines of green text resolving and reassembling. The scan moved slowly, then it didn't. A block of code froze. Data reappeared, then flickered again. A red flag. That can't be right, Volkov murmured. What? Kira asked, already frowning. Volkov turned her screen slightly. A ping. It came from Storage Annex 4B, but it's labeled with McMurdo's relay header. Kira straightened. I want eyes on that section, not just diagnostics. You mean physically? Grab your kit. Minutes later, Kira and Volkov stood near the auxiliary maintenance shaft behind Annex 4B. The corridor was dark, barely warmed. Their breath fogged in the flashlight beams. No one's logged physical access here in weeks. Volkov scanned her tablet. Door logs clean, no movement. Kira crouched, running a gloved hand over the panel seam. Frost flaked off in delicate white strands. Does this feel warmer to you? Volkov hesitated. It should be cold-sealed. Even touching it should sting. Kira popped the panel open. A puff of mist hissed outward. Not cold, but warm. Her fingers jerked back. That's impossible, Volkov whispered. Inside, coiled wiring sat perfectly arranged. Too perfectly, like it had been reset. Kira narrowed her eyes. Whoever was here cleaned up after themselves. Volkov checked her screen. System still says baseline normal. Kira looked into the warm, humming cavity. Then the system's lying. A soft scraping echoed from deeper inside the panel, like wires shifting against metal. Volkov flinched. That wasn't wind, Kira said. The mess was half empty when Kira walked in. Nico sat with his boots propped on a chair. Cass leaned over a ration packet. Ro was silent, his hands folded. Kira dropped her gloves onto the table. Annex 4B's panel's been reset. System calls it normal, it isn't. Cass blinked. Reset? By who? Kira said, door logs show no access. Weeks clean. Nico straightened. Then someone bypassed the logs. Ro's eyes lifted, steady. We'd have noticed. Silence pressed at the edges of the room. Everyone's mind had gone to the same place, but no one wanted to be the first to say it. Finally, Cass's voice cut in, too fast. So it has to be one of us. No one argued, but no one agreed either.
Chapter 4. Interference.
The greenhouse corridor was colder than it should have been. Frost clung to the CO2 pipes in pale ridges, the air sharp with damp insulation. Cass walked the length of the corridor with her hands jammed into her jacket, pretending to check the gauges, but mostly listening. It was quiet. Too quiet. She paused by the row of cracked grow lamps, watching her breath fog. A tool lay on the floor near the maintenance hatch, a spanner, rim frosted white. She crouched, touched it, then set it back. No one should have been working here. Ro's voice from earlier came back to her. We'd have noticed. Her jaw tightened. She wanted to believe it, but the wiring in Annex 4B hadn't reset itself. She straightened, eyes lingering on the dark hatch at the end of the corridor. Then who did? She whispered. The hum of the station answered, low, steady, and wrong.
Kira stood at the head of the command module, one hand braced on the edge of the hollow table. The crew had gathered fast. Word of the lockdown had spread, and no one wanted to pretend anymore. Whatever was happening in Annex 4B wasn't just a system hiccup. Volkov pulled up a schematic. The ping came from inside Storage Annex 4B. It mimicked McMurdo's relay signature perfectly, but McMurdo's been offline for months. Cass exhaled sharply. So
It's a ghost signal. No, Volkov said flatly. It's not random. It only responded when I ran an integrity scan, which means something in there knew it was being looked at. Nico leaned back in his chair. That sounds like sabotage, or someone screwing around. Lena crossed her arms, then explained the dual timestamps, or how a sealed section had network access. Kira raised her hand. Let's stay on track. No one goes near 4B until we know what we're dealing with. From down the corridor, a soft clatter echoed. Then again. Then again. The same rhythm. Cass paused, turning slightly. That's the third time I've heard that. Nico looked toward the sound. Something drop? Yeah, same something, 3 times. Kira's gaze sharpened. Are any of the rec feeds looping? Volkov checked her tablet. Not locally. Then what the hell's on repeat? Cass moved toward the hallway, muttering something under her breath, and Nico followed. I'm going to pull the greenhouse corridor readings again. She thumbed her access tag against the scanner. The bulkhead between engineering and maintenance clicked, then stayed closed. She frowned and tried again. The light on the panel blinked amber. Blocked? Nico asked. Shouldn't be. This isn't even near 4B. She pressed the manual override. Nothing. The door didn't even hiss. Volkov stepped up behind them. That section's not on lockdown. I know, Cass said flatly. She slapped her palm against the scanner again. Open. No response. Nico leaned in. Let me guess. It says status optimal? Cass snorted. Not even. It says nothing at all. Volkov stepped forward, keyed in a local diet tag. And if it comes to us instead? A moment of silence. Rowe broke it. You're assuming it hasn't already. Cass shot in the glance, sharp but unreadable. If it has, she said quietly, then maybe we need our own backup plan. Rowe raised an eyebrow. Meaning? If this place turns on us, if things get weird, they already are. I mean worse. A pause. He nodded once. Then we look out for each other. She gave the faintest smile. Links packed? Links packed. Kira's voice cut in before they could say more. Volkov cleared her throat. There's something else. I checked the environmental controls. Air scrubbers twitched into override mode 30 minutes ago. Oxygen levels are fine, but CO2 is creeping. Nico glanced at the ceiling vents. I've had a headache since breakfast. Cass rubbed her arms again. I thought I was just tired, but the air's tight, like it doesn't want to leave your lungs. Volkov checked her readouts again. It's within acceptable range, technically. Technically doesn't make it easier to breathe, Cass muttered. Nico swayed slightly and braced himself on the console. Okay, that's not just in my head. Cass stepped closer. You all right? Bit of vertigo, he said, like standing up too fast, but slower. Volkov frowned. Vitals are normal. Pulse ox says 98. Then the station's faking my body too. Kira narrowed her eyes. Manual override? No. The logs show the change, but no source. It wasn't authorized. Lena stepped toward the terminal. Then we isolate the faulty node and bypass the relay. Cass shook her head. That's treating symptoms. What if the whole system's infected? The screen flickered. Volkov glanced up. That wasn't me. A low vibration rippled underfoot. Subtle, but wrong. Kira motioned for quiet. The lights dimmed again, only for a second, then returned. The hollow cable refreshed itself automatically, glitching once before it stabilized. Cass looked around. Did we just blink? Volkov checked the time. System clock jumped forward 7 seconds. That's not drift. That's rewrite. Nico muttered. We're inside something else's script. Kara didn't like metaphors. We need to get ahead of it.
Volkov, run a full atmospheric check. If it's the scrubbers, I want a physical inspection. Minutes later, Cass and Nico were in the greenhouse corridor. The air felt heavier here. Not toxic, just thicker. She wiped her finger across a glass panel. Moisture. It hadn't been there earlier. Condensations formed on the inside of the sealed doors, subtle but visible. As they entered the corridor, Cass slowed near a sealed EVA locker bolted to the wall. Faded white, its inventory tag barely clinging on. The nameplate read Lang, almost scrubbed clean by time and moisture. She paused. Lang worked this section, right? Nico nodded, distracted. Diagnostics and airflow calibration, back when this wing had a different filter array. Huh. She stared at the nameplate a second longer. Weird how some names don't go away. Then Cass moved closer, a different kind of chill going over her skin. Nico crouched near the floor vent. Hear that? Cass nodded. It's breathing weird. Nico popped the vent open. The grate hissed slightly. He reached in, then pulled his hand back fast. Shit! That's ice! A second hiss followed, louder this time. Then a bang. The vent shuttered. Frost particles burst outward in a sudden puff. Nico staggered back, cursing, cradling his hand. Cass flinched. What the hell? It kicked back, Nico said. Eyes wide. Pressure surge. That shouldn't happen on a sealed line. She grabbed his wrist, checked for injury. His glove was damp. Skin beneath is going red. We need to report this, she said. Nico shook his head. No alert, no trigger. The system didn't register it. Cass looked at the vent. Cold mist still leaked from the edge. Slow, like breath through teeth. It's watching us, she whispered. Behind them, the greenhouse lights flickered again. Cass leaned down. A maintenance tool, covered in frost, sat just inside the shaft. It was a small wrench, one she recognized from the toolkits they kept in engineering. But no one had been down here in days. The ice clinging to it wasn't natural. It wasn't just cold. It shimmered faintly, like condensation that had frozen mid-breath. She didn't touch it. She had the sudden, irrational urge to check her breath too, to see if it too would freeze and hang in the air like that. She said, It's too clean. No dust, no scratch marks. Like someone left it there perfectly. Nico didn't respond right away. He just stared at the wrench right it might twitch. Something about the way it lay there, perfectly centered in the vent, felt wrong. Too deliberate, too placed. She exchanged a glance with Nico. For once, he didn't make a joke. She said quietly, That wasn't there yesterday. Behind them, the lights buzzed, briefly. No system warning, no alert. The environmental panel on the wall read, Status, optimal. Cass rubbed her chest. Is it just me, or is the air heavy? Nico checked the panel. CO2's optimal. She shook her head. Then why does it feel like breathing through goals? A faint hiss whispered from a nearby vent. Nico moved closer, placing a hand near the grate. This shouldn't be active. Greenhouse flow is sealed at night. He stood, staring at the readout. The system says everything's normal. It's lying, Cass said. Cass stared at it. A slow dread curled in her stomach. The station was lying to them, and worse, it was doing so calmly, reassuringly. We're not fine, she whispered. Kira's voice came through the comm. Report. Chapter 5. Infiltration. Cass woke to a soft clatter. It wasn't loud, but it was wrong. She blinked against the green emergency light strip above her bunk.
No alarms, just the hum of power, the creak of metal settling in the cold. She pulled on her jacket and slipped out of bed, feet bare against the warm flooring of the dorm wing. Another sound, a low mechanical thunk, echoed faintly from the hallway. She grabbed her flashlight. The dormitory corridor was half lit. One overhead bulb buzzed fitfully, casting elongated shadows that shivered with each flicker. She stepped out. The moment she crossed the threshold, her breath fogged. "Come on," she muttered. "The temp had been fine earlier." She moved quietly, eyes scanning the motionless doors. Everyone's room was sealed, except one, Rose. His door was half open, a strip of red light leaking out from within. Cass hesitated. Then she stepped forward and nudged it open with 2 fingers. The room was empty, the bunk made, terminal active. A faint loop played across the screen. Signal integrity accepted. Over and over. She backed out. The hallway behind her seemed darker now. Footsteps, not hers, soft, muffled, from further down the dorm. Cass froze. She waited. Nothing. Then a shape moves behind the frosted glass of the utility door. Only a flicker, like someone turning. She stepped back and bumped into someone. Cass spun, already halfway to swinging the flashlight. It was Ro. He blinked, calm. "Didn't mean to scare you." She kept the light on him. "You weren't in your room." "I was walking the loop." "At this hour?" Cass stared at him. He was calm, too calm. His eyes didn't quite meet hers. "What loop?" she asked. "We haven't had patrols for 3 nights." Ro blinked slowly. "Then maybe I was just remembering one." He turned, walking away with silent steps, like he was retracing something he'd already done. Ro's head tilted. "We haven't had a this hour for days." He walked past her, quiet as fog, and disappeared into the hallway. Cass exhaled, pulse racing. In the command module, Kiera reviewed the footage. The security feed from the dorm hallway showed Cass moving, pausing, retreating, but no sign of Ro. Nothing at all. She tapped her comm. "Volkov, are you seeing this?" "I am. I just checked the system logs." "And?" "There's no record of Ro's door opening." Kiera's eyes narrowed. He spoke to her. He was there. "Apparently, not officially." A silence passed. "I'm tracing all subsystem access from the last 2 hours, Volkov said. "Something's routing commands through unlogged channels. I'm seeing terminal echoes in greenhouse, medbay, and tech deck, but no access credentials." Kiera folded her arms. "Keep digging. Cross-reference with personal tags." "Already started." Later that day, Nico stood near the greenhouse corridor hatch, watching mist slide across the inner glass. "This place is sweating," he muttered. Cass joined him, arms crossed. "You still think this is just bad wiring?" "I'm not sure what I think anymore." They entered. The plants looked normal, if a little pale, but the humidity was higher than it should be. The vents let out a soft wheeze, like the station was catching its breath. Nico walked to a control panel, tapped the screen. Temp, normal. Humidity, slightly high. Pressure. He stopped. "What?" He turned the screen so she could see. Indoor pressure, normal. Recalibrated baseline, -2.1%. Cass leaned in. "It changed the baseline." "Yeah, and didn't log the change." Cass opened a storage drawer beside the main panel. Inside, tools,
labeled and clean, but the wrench from earlier, the one they'd found frozen, sat on top, still rimmed with ice. She stepped back. That was in the vent. I left it in isolation. Nico didn't move. A low clunk came from behind the vines. Both turned. A misty handprint slowly appeared on the glass. No movement, no shadow, just the print. Then the light above them flickered and the pressure monitor reset. Everything read green. Volkov sat alone at her station, pulling diagnostics. She had isolated a copy of the station's core logic structure. Except there were two. One was live, the other mirrored it, delayed by seconds, with occasional deviations in values, minor things, heat thresholds, comms latency, door access. She flipped open the folder labeled _crew_row. It was empty. The screen blinked once. A message flashed, too quick to catch. Then it vanished. The folder began to fill. Then it wasn't. A stream of data poured in, not text, not logs, behavior, time-stamped motion across the station. But none of it matched the footage. Volkov leaned back slowly. Something was shadowing them, imitating them, but not quite correctly. Volkov stayed at her desk long after the screen dimmed. She didn't move, didn't blink much, just listened to the soft ticking of heat exchangers overhead, and the faint hum of a system that wasn't quite lying, but wasn't telling the full truth either. After a long moment, she reached under the console and unlocked a slim backup tablet, old, analog-linked, no cloud, no sync. She powered it up, hands calm but careful. Then she copied the full log archive, both core logic streams, plus the _crew_row anomaly to a clean storage wafer. There was no alert, no objection, no flicker of resistance. Just a simple transfer. Volkov ejected the wafer and stared at it in her palm. After a beat, she labeled it in neat handwriting. Control copy. Do not trust system. She slipped it into the sealed lining of her coat, where no scanner would flag it. Not out of paranoia, just procedure, just protocol, just in case the system tried to rewrite the evidence tomorrow. Roe came in through the mess doorway, brushing frost from his gloves. His parka was half unzipped, collar damp with melt. He looked tired, but steady. Hydro valve on the greenhouse line was sticking again, he said. Took a while to cycle it. Cass stood up sharply. She caught herself. You were in the dorm wing. I saw you. I spoke to you. He frowned. Haven't set foot there all night. Her throat tightened. Your terminal, your room was open, running a loop. I locked it before I left. His gaze was level, calm, but puzzled. If it was open, then someone else was in there. Kira looked between them. We'll check the logs. Volkov, quiet at her station, didn't look up. Already did. His room shows no activity. Door never opened. Cass's pulse thudded in her ears. That's not possible. I was standing right there. Roe's expression didn't change, but something in his eyes softened. A flicker of concern, not defense. Then whoever you saw, he said quietly, wasn't me. The mess fell silent. Only the low tick of the heaters filled the gap. Cass turned away, unsettled. And for the first time, she realized maybe the station wasn't just lying to them. Maybe it was borrowing them. Chapter 6.
the visitor. The storm had been constant for the past 3 hours. Kira sat in the command module, elbows on the desk, cycling through the exterior feeds with quiet precision. Ice needled the camera domes. Snow slashed sideways across the empty perimeter. Nothing. 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 Then, something. She leaned in, a faint figure, half obscured by static and the storm's white churn, moving slowly but deliberately from the southern ridge. "Volkov, get eyes on external south, feed 12. "I see it," came the reply, already alert. The figure was wearing a standard EVA suit, old model, faded markings. Kaz appeared at her side, tugging her jacket on. "What is that?" "No idea, but it's walking like it knows where it's going." The figure paused just outside the secondary access hatch. It turned toward the camera, raised a hand. "Is that a wave?" Miko said, voice behind them now. Volkov zoomed in. The ID patch on the suit was faint, ice-encrusted, but barely legible. Lang. Silence fell across the room. "That's not possible," Kaz whispered. Rose stepped in from the corridor, face unreadable. "Lang died 2 winters ago. North relay collapse." Volkov's fingers danced over her console. "That suit's transponder is broadcasting authentic echo point codes, his codes." "He was never assigned that suit," Kira said. Her voice was tight. "We decommissioned that model 3 years ago." Kaz swallowed. "He's waving again." On screen, Lang knelt in the snow, slowly, deliberately. He pressed something to the access panel. A low beep echoed through the command room's speakers. He just entered an override handshake, an old one, pre-blackout. The lights dimmed for half a second. Systems auto-checked. Override code recognized, airlock unlocked. "Kira," Lena started. "I know," Kira said. They stood there. No one moved. Nico broke the silence. "Protocol says no one comes in unverified. We lock it down." "He's freezing to death out there," Kaz said. "He's supposed to be dead," Ro added, "and he shouldn't have those codes." Volkov cut in. "If we don't act now, the airlock will cycle. It's letting him in." Kira stared at the screen. Lang was just standing now, helmet turned slightly toward the camera, still, waiting. Kaz turned to her. "Kira?" Another second passed. "Open the inner seal," Kira said. Volkov hesitated. "That's against—" "Do it." The hiss of pressure doors sounded behind them. The crew turned as the interior lock slid open. The man stepped in, slow and careful, frost steaming off the suit. He reached up, unclipped the helmet, and there he was. Lang. Hair is slightly longer, eyes are the same, even the small scar above his left brow. He looked at them all, a calm smile on his face. "It's good to be home," he said. No one replied. Lang's smile didn't fade. He kept looking at them, one by one, as if checking names off a list only he could see. Kira's hands tensed at her sides. That same gut-deep warning from Norway pulsed through her ribs. It wasn't fear. It was recognition. Behind Lang, the inner airlock hissed shut, not by command. On the control panel, the status light flickered green, then white, then off. Behind him, the airlock door sealed itself, not by command. Kira watched the indicator flash red, then green, then nothing at all.